summer of 1963, I had an internship at the Smithsonian Institution at the section of photography in the Museum of History and Technology. And this event occurred at the very end of that in August. I had been there for the summer. I was a college student at Rochester Institute of Technology before that, and actually afterward I went back there that fall. But at the end of the summer, news came that this march was coming to Washington, D.C. There was a lot of apprehension of the people there, and so they called off the federal government for the 28th of August and said no one needed to come to work on that day. So I didn't come to work. However, being a photography student at Rochester at RIT, I thought this was a great opportunity to go out and photograph what was going on. I went down from my rooming house. I found a lot of people walking in the direction of the Lincoln Memorial. Actually, they were heading, as I found out later, to the Washington Monument, but you can, just a stream of vehicles. The roads were closed off. There were police who were supervising. Labor unions were very much in support of this. Of course, a lot of blacks were involved with unions, but in the North, I'm sure, not in the South. But so from many directions, the head marches were coming not just down Constitutional Avenue, I'm sure from other directions of the city. Groups were from all over. This is a group that came from California. You can see their flag. They're finding their way to the and the gathering point seemed to be at the Washington Monument. This is the SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee from Cambridge, Maryland. It was really almost a party atmosphere. It was very serious. These folks were determined. In the assembled around the Washington Monument, I found this woman carrying a New Hampshire sign. I went up and spoke to her. She said she was from Northampton. I believe she was affiliated with a church. I really didn't get her name, but I certainly felt that this represented some from New England anyway, someone who was committed to the cause. Yes, I have been told is Jackie Robinson. He was a man who many people were crowding around, and I knew he was a famous person, but I wasn't quite sure who he was.
You saw a crowd forming, and is that how you chose the picture?
Exactly. Just such a variety of people. I've learned since there were many other celebrities who were there, and of not all black people. These were some college students, looked like sort of a typical, almost Ivy League-ish looking characters who were there. This was an interesting picture of a woman reading a newspaper. A number of people were reading the same newspaper I saw, but this was one that told the story of the influx of people. It's a black newspaper. It wasn't the Washington Post, the Washington Star, which are more famous papers, but I'm sure they must have had similar kinds of lead stories of the day, that it was a huge gathering. The signs that were handed out were stacked up in a huge collection near the Washington Monument. Later you would see, as people started marching down, they would be pretty much all carrying these same signs. There were very few homemade signs that were part of this, and it was people were dressed up. They were, as a general rule, they were not like these young fellows running down the street here in work clothes, but tended to be more of a Sunday afternoon event. As we got closer to the Washington Monument, it really got crowded. It was very hard to move, as you can imagine. If there were 250,000 people there. It just was a crush of people as we approached the monument. At the monument itself, it was a setting where there were a lot of speakers up going on. We were all standing. It was a fairly warm day, but it was something that we were all very happy to be there. And as far as I could tell, there were really a very positive gathering of people. You can see some people up on top of the Lincoln Memorial. These are probably ones either from security people, but also probably people taking those pictures that you see so prominently looking back towards the Washington Monument from the very high view. And people were crowded around the top of the behind the speakers. The speakers were somewhat on a platform further down. It's a little bit hard to tell from this picture. I do not have a telephoto lens. My camera was a very old camera. This is what it looks like. It's no zoom lens on this. No way to get up and see what it looked like. But that was what I had at the time. The coverage of this, I understand, was on live TV, including at the White House. And this is one of the TV camera crew that was there. It's just a photographer. I thought they looked like interesting people who were observing, just spectators to the marchers. These were some what appeared to be government employees in front of a government building that's along Constitutional Avenue. They seemed to be, from their body language, not necessarily sure what was happening or whether they're going to run down and join the parade or not, but they were interesting people along the march route. But there was no counter demonstration. There were some interesting individuals who were watching from the sidelines. These folks looked like they perhaps might be Mennonites, I'm not sure, but they were probably tourists in the city. This was a curious character that was holding his sign for the marchers to see. Not exactly someone who was supportive of what was going on. These were some homemade signs, some folks who were along the march route that were supportive of what was going on to an extent. And so this was a very moving experience for me. After the march, I went home to my rooming house room and I wrote a letter to a U.S. Senator from New Hampshire, Senator Norris Cotton, and asked him to be supportive of legislation to improve the lot of then the folks called Negroes, but actually all citizens of the country, to be able to vote and to be a full participant in our culture and lifestyle and economics of the time. So the response from Senator Cotton was not particularly good. He made some comment to the effect in his letter that we cannot legislate morality, and it is something that we can legislate some behavior that can bring about justice and jobs and other values for all our citizens. And I certainly came away hoping that we could change some views on this, and I think in the last 50 years we have seen that we have made great progress. Much can be done, particularly concerning preserving voting rights for all citizens that seems to be under attack now. So these are some of my takeaways looking back 50 years.
again today.